For 3 years now, I've been awaiting the time that Marcus Mariota would declare himself for the NFL draft, knowing that this guy was going to be, whenever he declared, a highly thought of prospect. He was going to be a quarterback with a chance of going in the top 5, if not potentially going #1 overall in whatever draft he ultimately declared for. Well, after his great redshirt junior season in 2014, which saw him go for over 5,200 total yards and 58 total touchdowns, winning the Heisman Trophy, leading his team to the national championship game in the inaugural edition of the college football playoff, the time finally came. There was nothing more that Marcus Mariota could accomplish. There was nothing more that Mariota could do by staring at Oregon. The time had come for him to declare for the 2015 NFL Draft. In spite of all the success that he enjoyed at the college level, now Marcus Mariota gets himself ready for that next step, that next level. And with that comes a lot of questions during this whole draft process. There is a very persistent, pervasive narrative about Mariota right now, and that is that he's a system quarterback that benefited greatly from playing in the spread over the past 3 years at Oregon, that he has a long ways to go and a lot of work to do and is far from being a big-time NFL starting quarterback or being even close to being ready to be such. And he's clearly behind Jameis Winston as the #2 quarterback in this 2015 NFL draft class. Are those skeptics right? Are the NFL draft community and media members that are saying this on point? Or are they being blinded by what they hear others say and not being enlightened by what they see? Well, I'm going to tell you now what I see and what I think the future holds for Marcus Mariota at the NFL level. There are a lot of things over the past 3 years that I've grown to really like about Marcus Mariota's game. In terms of some of his biggest strengths that I see, those assets that could translate well to the NFL level and make him a big-time NFL franchise quarterback would include his incredible athleticism that really fits the mold of what a lot of NFL organizations are going to be looking for in the modern NFL quarterback. This is a guy that can make plays in great quantities with his feet, but can also beat you with his arm. What I also really like about Mariota in his game, other than the fact that he is an incredible dual threat weapon and has the explosive ability to make big plays consistently with his feet, is that he protects the ball as a passer especially, and doesn't take a lot of unnecessary risks. Now, some may say that that comes due to the system that he played in, but at the end of the day, he protected the ball. At the end of the day, he didn't turn it over. He didn't put the ball at risk, and that's something that you have to value, especially out of young quarterbacks at the NFL level. And when you look at his game too, he uses that athleticism very well. It's really functional athleticism, especially when it comes to the passing game. He's equally effective throwing on the move, both to the right and to the left. And when he scrambles out of the pocket, what I really like is he isn't automatically looking to run. He is looking to throw. He is keeping his eyes up and downfield, reading the defense and trying to figure out a way to beat a team with his arm first before he tries to beat them with his feet. And he could do that equally effectively, in my view, based off of what I've seen the past 3 years, going both to the right and to the left. And I think one thing that Marcus Mariota doesn't get nearly enough credit for is how well he uses his eyes to go through his progressions. This is an individual that people will say he played in a spread system, which created a lot of wide open throwing windows for him. But there were a lot of times over the past 3 years, and in particular in 2014, that I saw Marcus Mariota look comfortable in the pocket, going to his primary, his secondary, and even third, perhaps sometimes even fourth option. I thought he did a really good job of looking off opposing safeties, not locking on to his primary target on a consistent basis, which is so often a big knock that we have against so many young quarterbacks coming from the college to the NFL level. And perhaps the single most important and impressive thing about Mariota are the great poise, maturity, and leadership skills that he demonstrated on a consistent basis during his tenure at Oregon. These are the type of things that, in my mind, you want to see out of a young quarterback. These are the type of traits and characteristics you want to see out of a guy that you want to build your franchise around. And these are the type of things that make you feel comfortable with spending a really high pick on a guy like Marcus Mariota. However, with that said, I do have some big concerns about his game and how he will translate to the next level. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot I like about Marcus Mariota's game, and there are a lot of things that point to me that say that he's going to be a big-time NFL franchise quarterback. But there are big, serious, significant concerns that I have. First is that he needs to utilize his lower body better in his throws. Consistently, when I would watch Mariota, one big question I had about him, while some people might not like his mechanics and think he gets a little long in his throwing motion, my bigger problem with his mechanics is that he doesn't consistently utilize his lower body. And when you do that, that means you tend to throw too much with your upper body, which can tend to sap velocity off of your throws and tends to affect your accuracy. And you definitely saw that reflect on the film out of Mariota over the past 3 seasons. He has a tendency to float the ball. When he misses, he tends to miss high. And that's very scary, especially when he's throwing the ball over the middle. I would rather have a guy who tends to miss low than a guy who tends to miss high, because the throw that's low, nobody might catch. That throw that's high and floats, especially over the middle, anybody could potentially catch on your team or on the opposing team. His ball placement also is somewhat very lacking. So it's that lack of utilization consistently in his throwing mechanics, not utilizing that lower body effectively, stepping through and following through his throws with his entire body, that not only leads to that ball floating at times, but also leads to his ball placement being off. And what I mean is if he needs to throw it to the outside shoulder, sometimes he'll throw it to the inside hip. When he needs to sit there and hit somebody here, he hits somebody there. It's still kind of in the area. It's not horribly bad from an accuracy standpoint, but those are the type of things that big-time franchise quarterbacks do consistently at the NFL level. They not only find the open guy and hit the right target, they hit the right spot in the right way in the right area, and that's something that I think is lacking in Mariota's game. And when I talk about his ability to use his eyes and go through his progressions, I think he does a really good job at that. Similar to what an Andrew Luck did coming out in 2012. However, just like with Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford, I think there are plenty of times where Mariota doesn't always trust what he sees. And sometimes he's late to recognize what he's recognizing and reading. And that can create some problems at the NFL level, because sometimes you have to trust what you see and throw a guy open when he's not even open when you begin your throwing motion. And I'm not sure Mariota has that skill set at this point in time. And the biggest concern of all is, frankly, that he played in a spread system that hasn't produced a lot of quality NFL starters. That is a concern. I understand it. It shouldn't preclude him automatically from being viewed as a big-time NFL franchise quarterback type prospect, but it is a significant concern. The type of system that he played in, the type of throws that he made, the type of responsibilities that he had, combined with the fact that that system hasn't exactly been a huge NFL quarterback factory of quality starters, leads you to have some serious concerns about how this guy and his game is going to translate to the NFL level. Now, in terms of comparisons for Mariota and his skills and his potential at the next level, you'll hear a lot of talk about Colin Kaepernick. That's the name you're going to see most often associated with Marcus Mariota. I understand why people say it, but I think they're flat out wrong. The comparisons between Mariota and Kaepernick and their games start with their abilities as runners and end with their abilities as runners. Because Kaepernick is a guy that after 4 years in the league still can't read opposing defenses, still is a one read and run guy who struggles with his accuracy both in the pocket and on the move. Whereas Mariota is much better, frankly, using his eyes and going through his progressions and reading defenses now coming out of college than Kaepernick ever has been, either at Nevada at the college level or with the 49ers at the NFL level. Mariota is also much more accurate, both as a passer in the pocket and on the move, either to the right or to the left. I understand why people will sit there and get so caught up in what both can do with their feet and say that's the comparison, but that's where the comparison stops. In terms of all-around game, when I look at Marcus Mariota, I see Ryan Tannehill of the Miami Dolphins. Tannehill was very similar as a prospect coming out of Texas A&M. Here was a guy that was a great athlete with an adequate but not special arm, fit that modern NFL quarterback mold of the guy who could beat you both with his feet and with his arm, that needed work, but had huge upside. And when you look at Tannehill now, after 3 years, you saw in 2014 what Tannehill could be. He's just starting to scratch the surface of who he is as an NFL quarterback. When I look at Marcus Mariota, I see Ryan Tannehill. I see a guy that could get by initially with his feet, a guy that could frustrate you at times, but a guy that once he gets it, he could really get it, and he could really make some big steps in years 2, year 3, year 4, and become a big-time franchise NFL quarterback. I don't deny that there are questions, and serious questions at that, about Marcus Mariota and his ability to translate to the NFL level. But you could say that about just about every quarterback prospect going into the NFL draft. You really, truly could. What I resent is this narrative that has been pounded down our throats for months about him being a system quarterback, being far from NFL ready, and that he's clearly behind Jameis Winston as the number 2 quarterback in this 2015 NFL draft class. I just don't believe that to be the case. I've been enlightened by what I've seen compared to being blinded by what I've heard. Here's what I say about Marcus Mariota. If he doesn't fit your system, then maybe the system's broken, not the player. His legs make him far more ready to compete and contribute at the NFL level right away and make him more NFL ready than what you're being told and what you've been led to believe. And he is, as a passer, more ready than you think, who has more upside overall as a player than Jameis Winston does. And he will be, in my opinion, the best quarterback out of this 2015 NFL draft class. There, I said it. Boom!